January 16th, 2022. It's a Saturday night. I'm by myself as usual. I'm just sitting on the floor and I'm thinking to myself, Lou and Lynn are watching something together. It all of a sudden became like a family event, and I'm like, mm. And then he's like, it's Nicole, it's just moving pictures. And I'm like, alright, Lou, got that. Just moving pictures. I'm like, I'm gonna skip on this one, but thank you for inviting me to whatever level of soiree, the two of them at Couch Potato, and family binge watch at Couch Potatoes, it feels like these days. I'm like, I'm gonna just go sit quietly. So I am. And then I'm running the gauntlet and the gamut through my head by myself, thinking. A very democratic view, it feels like anyway, of demolition and breaking things down so they're more digestible, more understandable, which on one hand I totally get the concept of with its just moving pictures. But there is a place, a tectonic plating for the rest of us. Who knows, there's a mechanics problem with the Earth's shift in weight, the drift within the magnetic polar whatever. So I'm like, there's always a what's, like the humans always speak about there's a future. Like there's some form of timing, like there's a today, which of course I never have any expectation. I seem to just reboot every day, and then all of a sudden it's like, ugh, what did they hang 10 in my future without me knowing anything? And then in some like medically induced coma, it feels like, but like a walking coma, where sometimes all of a sudden it's like the trolleys that they used to have in the city that needed electricity in order to move. Better yet, more like a Lionel train set in antique toy manufacturing, where it's like if the thing had the contact with the electric rails, it would go, but if it wore out or whatever, it would like slow down, or it would sometimes at certain parts of the track it would just disconnect. It's kind of how I feel like the wiring with humans into this consciousness has been, which is a frustrating detail. The humans made in I think it was early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, from my distal proximity, they mentioned something about hang 10, and they made this symbol, and they would do this sign. Don't know what that was about. And it had something to do with surfing. But I don't want that to get confused with surfdom, and that's not like that's more like I don't know, a spangler, a dum-dum lollipop kind of a thing, I guess, kind of, sort of, and not really, I don't really know how anybody receives information anymore. So, and that's confectionery for whatever. So it gets really confusing here. So I'm like, do I distance I mean, I've always just naturally distanced myself from Lynn and Lou. We don't really get along. I mean, I moved and kept moving with my kids to just be with my kids privately, and they were, Lynn really was invited in, but not often. I mean, and then it became often, and then it was like, whatever. Um, it's just like this moving target, just keeps getting worse. Um, so I'm like, okay, so democratically he feels it's just moving pictures. So at Republican level, if we're for the public, because that's what I am at the moment, private house, public, I don't really know. But then it's the RE, so it's the Republic, so it's supposed to be private and privy, sacredly whatever, because there's supposed to be a future and there's supposed to be a tomorrow. But there's bigger things going on as always, and I'm never quite sure what level of next level is tracking right, is postponing, is teaching. It's like I'm off course, and it's been a problem from the beginning when like the first guy from 1976 started like choking me and trying to kill me. But that was a different decade. It has not been an easy go of things, and it just feels like it keeps getting worse. And I really didn't do anything. Um, it is just like, so they're just moving pictures to him. I happen to know there's a next, so there is some importance in storytelling and the way the story's told. Tonight, Lynn and I did watch something called Undercover. The only thing I found is that I'm like, oh, I gotta now be careful with the way I use the word polite. I'm like, that's apparently, I mean, that's something to do with Belgium, and then there was a trailer park. I did not know that's the woman had on a pair of really short shorts with like curtain tassels on them. It was whatever. Um, that whole storyline, I'm just like, oh god, I could characterize people I've met and pseudo-impose them on scenes, but I won't, because they're just moving pictures, right? And lose viewpoint of I've been misled my whole life, or this crime scene in process is like, I told one of the neighbors about that this morning. I'm like, all right, so let me ask you a question. I was taught when I was a kid, you don't talk about politics or religion. I was like, but then they have this slogan, see something, say something. So now that gets confusing because it feels like an oxymoron and a hypocrite. But then those two words are kind of trippy based on how they're built in constructs of other things that are going on that might upset diplomacy at some level. And then I'm like, it really does feel like a crime scene. I told the man that. I'm like, I really feel like I just walked into a crime scene. I'm like, wasn't me. I don't know what's going on here. Like, I mean, this was in progress when I arrived, and I'm trying to stay out of it and not make things worse, but it just does get confusing what to do around humans, and how to keep oneself and children and future. in some form of semblance.
Why are you doing that?
So it's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole, Cattaruzza, Earth, Solar System, Milky Way, Universe, Galaxies, Broken, Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361.